on. All right. Hey, everybody. So I want to talk about the slap heard around the world. And of course, you know what I'm talking about, unless you literally have been under a rock somewhere, no pun intended. You know what happened at the Oscars with Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. So I want to unpack that. And I purposefully didn't make a video right when it came out, even though I had thoughts about it, because I had to let this marinate a little bit. And honestly, my opinion for this kind of went back and forth. And I looked at it as just a fan of Will. And I thought about it from that aspect. I put on my counselor's hat. I have a degree in counseling. A lot of you guys have been following the channel for a while know that. So I put on that hat as well. So it took me a minute to kind of get my footing as to what I think about this. So I want to share my thoughts on it. I do want to say you all also really quickly before we jump into this, please make sure that you share your comments because I would love to know what the dark side community thinks about this, as there are so many differences in points of view as to whether or not you think this was respectful, whether or not you think it was good because he was defending his wife. Was it inappropriate? Is it going to mar the thought that people have of him? I want to know all of that. I do want to say real quickly, though, I am caught up on everything. I did see the first episode of Moon Knight, which I loved. I did see the latest episodes of Superman and Lois, and I do have tickets to see Morbius. So I've got to get videos out for all of that. But man, it's been crazy. Life has been crazy. Again, I'll make a video about it. All right, so let's jump in. So here's the thing. My first reaction to this was that this was wrong. I think that Will was wrong. And I really, really wish if I could do it myself, if I could rewind time for him, I would rewind time and reset it. You know what I mean? Like I would change some kind of dynamic so that this didn't happen, because I do think that this is going to have an impact on him for a long time to come. You probably have heard that the Academy Awards is trying to think about what they're going to do in response to this. And from what I understand, they're even kicking around the notion of taking back the Oscar. Now, I feel like something like that would only be really symbolic in nature in terms of whether they strip him of it because he got the Oscar for a performance that he did. And that is separate and apart from him slapping Chris Rock. So to take the Oscar from him, I'm not even really sure what message that sends. Does it send the message that, I guess it could send the message that the Academy Awards don't appreciate behavior like that, and therefore we can in good conscience grant you this Oscar, but it still doesn't strip him from the fact that he had the performance that he had in King Richard. So that's going to stand no matter what. But I do think that they're kicking around what to do here. Yeah, Will made a mistake. He should not have slapped Chris. Now, what I'm going to say next, you probably heard before, but this does, it does represent a part of my opinion. I do agree with the people who have said that he is a comedian. Rock's a comedian, and Rock has said worse. I will tell you, in my opinion, that what he said was pretty darn mild for what some other comedians even have said in other places, and Chris Rock as well. It was pretty darn mild. Now, it's not lost on me the fact that she has alopecia and that she's sensitive about that. And I can appreciate that as well. But look, when you're at a show, if you've ever been to a comedy show, you know you're going to get clowned. You know the comedian will clown you. And you know, in a lot of cases for comedians, nothing is off limits. Now, whether or not you agree to the rightness or wrongness of something like that from a comedian is another conversation. Whether they should say stuff or they shouldn't say stuff, whether saying this or that is crossing the line, I think those might be valid arguments, but that's a different conversation. I'm just talking about what you normally can expect when you are in a show and a comedian is there. They clown people in the audience and nothing is off limits. So to have Chris say what he said, to me, number one, should not have been as disruptive as it was, in my opinion. Now, what's interesting here is that I do think that Will's response is unhinged. And here's where I went back and forth on this. Another reason why I didn't put out a video right away, because I kind of had to process this, because I looked at it from a lot of different vantage viewpoints. I looked at it as a fan of Will's, of which I am way back from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air days to even the current stuff that he's done. I'm a big fan of Will. I think he's an amazing talent. I am reading his book right now, which I'm not going to lie, it was sparked by seeing what happened at the Oscars. So, and he's been through a lot, so I'm a big fan of his because I'm a big fan of triumph. Anybody who has gone through a lot, who has weathered a storm to get to a better place, I appreciate them for that. So I'm a big fan of his story. That said, he seemed unhinged. And here's where I put my counselor's hat on. So some of you guys know, if you've been following the Dark Side community for a long time, I have a master's degree in counseling. And what I thought was interesting is a number of different things here. Number one, the first thing that struck me, and you probably have heard this before, was the variance in temperament. I mean, everybody saw him laughing in the beginning. So we see him laughing, and then he goes from laughing, going up there to slapping Chris. And then he comes back and he has that very forceful rant. And then he, gets the award, and he's crying and talking about how he wants to be better. He apologizes to everybody except for Chris. Then Diddy makes a joke, and he's laughing at Diddy's joke. So the first thing that struck me, just from like a therapeutic standpoint, is wow, like this is fascinating to see the variance in temperament and how all of these different changes in temperament are happening within a very short period of time. So what that suggests to me is that there is some internal struggle going on with Will. And yes, I am wearing my therapist hat right now. So that there is some internal struggle going on with him. And we've seen that reflected at the Oscar. Now, it could have been triggered by the joke that Chris made. Who knows, man? Sometimes we have internal triggers that go on inside, and we're not even sure what those triggers are until we unpack them with a therapist. But something happened. I do think that what I would love to know, because I think it's interesting, is I wonder what happened between the time that he was laughing and he had, I'm assuming, what would be some interchange with Jada. It could have been the fact that he just looked at her and saw that she was not happy about what happened. And maybe it was the fact that others were laughing, and that was the trigger that caused him to get up and go slap Chris. I hope that that's not the case. I hope it's not the case that he simply, by looking at her, saw her displeasure and did not have the wherewithal to compose himself enough not to get up and go slap someone in the face. Because to me, that is suggestive of some things that need to go on inside, because you have some repairs to make internally. Now, that's my thought. Now, I know that some people probably will respond to that and say, well, wait a minute, Al, what about honoring your wife? What if something like that had happened to Malika? I'd still like to think, my wife don't like no jokes about her hair. A lot of women, hair is big for them. But I still like to think that even if Malika was upset, I would have the wherewithal within myself to know that it's not okay for me to just let my anger take control, get up on stage and go slap someone. I would like to think that that's the case, because to me, the move that Will made to me suggests a move of unhealthiness. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, things happen in a fit of rage. And I think maybe you're carrying it a little bit too far, Al, by saying that all of this stuff is going on. Well, I said to you before, putting all the pieces together, looking at the whole scenario of what happened here is suggestive that something else is working under the skin there. Certainly people have fits of rage, but even people who have fits of rage don't do things to the extreme. And for those that have fits of rage that do things to the extreme, we suggest that there might be some other stuff going on there. So I think that his behavior was completely inappropriate. Honestly, I really wished, and maybe she did, and maybe we just don't know about it, but I really wish that Jada would have stopped him there. And you guys probably heard some people say that. I wish Jada would have said, wait a minute, stop. It's cool. Talk to him after. We'll deal with this later. Because he had to have a really good indication that he was a strong runner-up to win the Academy Award. So I really wish at that point that she would have stopped him. Now, let me clarify something, make this abundantly clear. I am not saying that it was Jada's responsibility to do that. I'm not saying that somehow, some way it's her fault because she didn't stop him. No, the onus lies completely on Will for what he did. But I'm just saying that I wish that he had done that. Now, here's something I think that people are going to find a bit controversial, and please feel free to correct me or say whatever you want to say addressing my comments in the comments. So for me, this is interesting when I think about some of the work that Will has done in being really inspirational and sharing stories and really inspiring us to move beyond what we thought was possible for ourselves, inspiring us to be people that reach summits of of goals that we didn't think that we could reach. He creates some really powerful and motivational videos when it comes to that. But now after seeing this, and this is where people are going to have a problem with me, but I got to say this. I'm not really sure if that is the Will Smith that we are seeing, and that is a persona of someone that he wants to be or someone that he is. I'm really not sure about that. I'm wondering if what we see there, even all the work that he's doing now, he wants to be better. He wants this place to, he wants the world to be a place of love. Is that the Will that he wants to be, or is that the Will that he presently is? Now, I do have to say, if that is someone that he's striving to be, I don't have any issues with that. I think it's great that we all strive to be better. I think it's great that we all strive to level up. I think all of that is positive. But it does make me wonder if the Will that we see is the Will that he actually is, or is it the Will that's becoming? It's also interesting to ask that question when you think about his book, which I just actually got as a result of the Oscars, because the brother's gone through some stuff. Like he's had it rough. And I will tell you, man, like I tip my hat to the struggles that he has gone through, and for him to be able to land where he has, it's not easy. Any kind of success is not easy. And I can tell you unequivocally, hands down, without question, that if you are a kid that has experienced certainly the level of turmoil that Will has experienced, but I would even downgrade it to say turmoil to a lesser extent in your family that's been really jarring to you, and you've not worked that out through therapy, and you've not worked that out through whatever different means of getting all of that eternal angst inside of you, outside of you, you are going to have some problems. It will manifest itself. Because I consider emotional damage almost like energy. And you know what people say about energy or force, it cannot be destroyed. You have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. So I liken it to that, to say that you can't just let it sit, because it will just stay there. You have to get it outside of you. You have to push it away from you. You have to recognize it. And I don't know that he's done that work or that he hasn't. I don't know. He may have said it in a talk or somewhere else that he's gone through therapy or something like that. I really don't know. So if he has, that's great. But my point is, you don't go through the types of trauma that he went through and not be impacted by that. And it's obvious that he has, because he says in his book that he's always felt cowardly. So those are just kind of my thoughts on what Will did. I feel bad for him, because I wish that he hadn't. I wish that he had made a better choice. I wish that I could rewind time, and that I could change the situation, because I do think that this is going to be an indelible mark on him all the time. I really do. Now, maybe his persona, maybe who he is, and maybe what he's trying to do will rebound, and we'll look back at this and none of us will remember it as something so jarring that we dismiss him. I mean, it makes me think about still how many people have admiration for Jay-Z, even though he got slapped by Solange in the elevator. But he did have the restraint to not hit her back. And not many people talk about what happened with Jay-Z and Solange right now, at least not that I know of. Honestly, I don't follow Jay-Z like that, but I don't know that that's necessarily a marker that people always identify him by. So maybe the same thing will happen to Will. I tend to think that the event and the stage and the circumstances surrounding what happened with Will is a bit bigger, and is certainly much more public. So maybe it won't be that hard to shake. But I do hope that he does rebound from this. I do also think that it's interesting about the whole dynamic of what some folks are saying in terms of exposure, and kind of what Jada has done with the, I think, is it the Red Chair or the Red Room? I think it's the Red Room, the series that she has, and where she's really expressed a lot of what's going on in her life. I think things like that are great. I mean, you guys know I've shared some personal stuff on the channel about my own life, the things that are going on with me. And I think, or I hope, that the idea that she has when she's doing this is to really share her story, and maybe some of the struggles and some of the things that have gone on will be helpful with others. I know that's why a lot of people do it. A lot of people that have had really tragic backgrounds share those tragic backgrounds with the hope of you and I hearing those stories and moving us forward, helping us to get beyond the point of being stuck, helping us to know that we're not the only ones that have gone through something like that. So maybe that is why she shares the things that she shares in her show. But I do think this: whenever a person does something like that, you have to be a strong enough person internally to be able to handle the comments and the criticisms that come as a result of that, because you're going to get that. And if you've not done the work of being internally strong inside, then it's going to be very hard to weather that storm. I don't know if that's the case of what we have here with Will, with all of the exposure of all of his life's details and all the different things going on with him, and a lot of that being shared publicly, that he maybe thought he did, but maybe he doesn't, or maybe he does not yet have the fortitude to deal with all of that. And if you don't, then you shouldn't put your stuff out there, because people can be mean. So I want to finish up by talking about Chris, because I feel like he is not getting enough attention in this whole ordeal. And I really appreciate what D.L. Hughley said about him, and the fact that D.L. Hughley apologized for not really recognizing the impact of this on Chris as well. I don't think this was staged, by the way, for some of you all who think it was staged. I completely don't think it was staged. I think that it was real. Initially, I thought it was staged because it almost looked like a choreographed slap, like the timing was perfect. But I don't think it was staged. I do think that it actually happened. So I take my hat off to Chris, because number one, he handled it like a professional. He kept it moving and he handled it like a professional. So I got to give him love for that, because I know some folks may have lost it. I mean, for a lot of different reasons. You come up there, you get slapped, you're on a big stage, and maybe that's a case where the breaking point happens, and you just go into fight mode, right? But he didn't do that. He kept his composure. He kept the comedic element, and he made it through the segment. So I take my hat off to him. I'm sure that he is very confused about what happened. I'm impressed by the fact that he did not file charges. Now, that's not to say whether or not I think he should or should have. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just talking about what he did. I'm impressed at the fact that he didn't. I'm impressed at the fact that even during his shows, he's still treating this subject with a degree of respect. Because he could have just went off. He could have just ranted, but he kept it to himself, and he said that he's still processing it. So congrats to him for how he handled it, man. I mean, like, that's a man right there, right? That's a man that handles it that way. Now, some people don't see it that way. Some people are like, look, yo, if I get swung on, I'm swinging back. And that's what a real man does. A real man doesn't let himself get slapped. No, a real man composes himself. A real man keeps control of his emotions. That's what a real man does. And I want to submit to you that that's what we got with Chris. So I'm really impressed by that. And I really feel like that needs to be said. I know that some people have come out and talked about, this whole thing from Chris's angle, but we need to really have more applauding of Chris with how he reacted to it. Now, some people are probably thinking, but what about the joke, Al? The joke was inappropriate, and maybe it was inappropriate. Like I said, I think that it was mild, in my opinion. But some people said that the joke was inappropriate. And fair enough for those folks that thought that. Maybe he shouldn't have said it. Maybe he shouldn't have. But I'm just talking about the reaction that he had after getting slapped in the face. And I thought that the way that he handled that was admirable. I think that for me, kind of categorically, those two things are different, the joke and the slap. And you might not, disagree with that. You can drop a comment if you do. I think it's unfortunate. I think just the whole thing is sad. Like, I feel bad for everybody. I feel bad for us as fans. I feel bad for everybody that's involved in the whole thing, the whole circle of people. Jada, I feel bad for Will. I feel bad for Chris. I mean, this was supposed to be just such a big night. You guys know I've talked about representation on the channel a lot, and there was a lot of representation in the Oscars. And then to have this happen is just sad to me. I'm not going to get into the whole thing about black on black violence and all that. I feel like that's a farce and a spin that some people are talking about and wanting to apply to the Oscars to make a point, but I'm not even going to go there. So I just think it's sad. So those are my thoughts on the slap heard around the world. All right, you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it to the end of this, we will start picking up with videos again. I am going to start doing weekly live streams as well. So it's just been like a whole bunch of big changes in life, and I got to do a video and fill you guys in on that as well. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Love you guys. See you on the next video. Peace.